For the latest top tips, reviews and advice, please subscribe below.
Hello and welcome to Attwoolls Outdoors with me, Mike. Today I'm going to give you a bit of like a tutorial video about how you pitch your Dometic Sunshine Air Tour awning. So what I've got here is the main body, the side doors and also the front panel as well. So we kind of pitch everything in this kind of little video, talking through the process and explaining what we're doing the whole way through. So first and foremost, we'll start with the main body of the canopy itself. So all we can do is grab it out of the bag, open it up, we'll feed it directly onto the awning rail and position it. And then that will be kind of our main sort of start and our basis. So the joys of the actual latest model with the Tour is that you have, as previously mentioned, the ability to add additional parts onto it to seal up. Whereas the old probably Pro model, all you really had was the just the side panels. So there's no front panels, they attach to different methods. It's almost worth mentioning that we have done a separate review video showing you exactly how to, well, talking about all of the in-depth details about the new model, what's different. Immediately when you feed onto the rail, makes life easier if you've got a second pair of hands just to kind of help you sew. This can be something that one person can do on their own. Perfect. Once we're on the rail, we'll just pull it across, position it where we want it to be. So in this case, just kind of covering the door. Just pull the canopy out. Now there's an isolation tap, basically for deflation on one side. So we'll just turn that off. And we've got a separate kind of inflation point on this side over here. So again, we just want to make sure that's screwed in, because what we'll tend to do is unscrew that, so when we want to come to deflate it and pack it away. Once we're at this stage here, we can just grab our pump, insert our pump nice and neat, make sure we've got nothing twisted and nothing's in the way. So insert the pump, so you want the back cap screwed in and the front cap taken off. At this point here, we can then start inflating PSI is kind of recommendation. I mean, about 9 is kind of where you want to go. But what you'll find is there'll be a pressure gauge on the actual valve itself, which makes life easier. You sort of can clearly see when you get up to the right pressure. But you'll see it kind of go quite rigid. Of course, you can get electric pumps to do it for you if you really want to, but for me, and we're good to go. So now we're fully inflated. Next thing we want to do is obviously pull it out and peg it out. For this, I'm just going to use my own pegs. What you do get supplied with the awning is some plastic pegs. Do have a bracer tube in the centre, so just make sure that's directly out. So that's the bit that keeps it nice and stable. We'll make sure the beams are basically vertical, and there's a tab that runs across the width. So this makes sure we're not going to kind of oversplay the feet. Ideally, what we're looking for is it to be kind of in line with that top point there. Now, if it's a windy day, this is at the point now we probably would peg it, just this main guy rope out, just because it allows us to work on the awning. The further you can come out, the better, just because it gives it a bit more sort of overall strength. But because you've got that middle beam for in the awning already, it's going to obviously give it a bit more structural strength than probably other brands. So now it's kind of secured out, we're just going to peg it out. So again, ideally we want the base to be kind of in line with the top section. That put the side panels on in just a moment. It kind of keeps it all neat and tidy. So peg through kind of the big black triangle, and with this one here, we'll just peg directly against ourselves. And then finally, we've got a little guy rope just to peg it out. And we want to do this again almost in line with the actual beam itself, just that way. We've got structural support from the side. So I say, as a canopy, very quick and easy to pitch. Not a whole lot to it. It goes up quite literally in a matter of a couple of minutes. And then we've got our use. So we can see it's a little bit different to the previous version of this, like the Pro fabric. Just the fact that we've got a different fabric material, a little bit of a kind of a peak to it as well, just to overall increase the height. And as aforementioned, the side panels now zip on, so we can just unravel these. There's a left and right hand side to them, just because of the natural shape of the slope. What you want to look at for is, this is the closer side. Again, it's not a bad thing to have a step if you wanted to. Now, the joys actually, I quite like, is that the zip itself attaches from the bottom. So it means you're not up in the air trying to attach the zip on. Makes it much easier to zip everything directly on. Just kind of pull the fabric up to it and take the zip all the way to the end. And then once we're there, we can start pegging that out. Personally, you want to start as close as you can to the side. You're never going to get a perfect kind of fit to the side. If you want to get it a bit closer, then what you do is probably bring the front part of the beam back in a little bit more. Just again, because what that's going to do is just bring ourselves a bit closer. I'll unpeg that temporarily. We'll then get the webbing strap part. We'll take that kind of underneath the Caravan, if we can reach at all. So go a little bit underneath the Caravan. Again, trying to keep it in line with the top. And from there, we can just bring that front part of the canopy out a little bit. And again, we'll pull it away from our original point over there. Now, with the pegging points, we want to peg the front one, we want to peg almost heading towards the front of the awning, just so it's pulling away from the back section. And I'll just grab a few more pegs. So I'm just using my own pegs. What you get normally supplied with the awning actually is some kind of plastic pegs, but just to save spoiling them for the sake of the video, I'm just kind of opting to use my own. And then we'll just peg it directly down from there. Obviously, it's going to depend on the varied height you've got the awning and how kind of smart and tight it's going to look. Then what we'll do is just do exactly the same for kind of the other side. Fellas, I've kinked myself out a little bit there, so let's bring that back in. What it's like being just right if I can. Same thing for the other side. So we'll just, and again, it means you've got the versatility that on a, say, a windy day or just a sunny day, you put the canopy up itself. You then merely just attach the side panels on. And because you've obviously got both panels, they come as a pair, you have the option to kind of adapt it so the winds come from one direction, you just put one panel on. Or of course, like we have here, you put, well, as we're going to do, you put every component onto it. So it creates almost like a completely sealed awning up against it. So it's really nice and flexible. Is that for me? Oh, thank you. And again, we'll try and get it as tight, generally as tight as we can to the back. For the sake of this, I'm not going to be too particular, I think. Again, we'll peg the front to give the tension forwards. and then voila. So now we've got the sides on. The last thing we'll do is obviously the front panel itself. Again, because it zips, it's a real nice thorough affair the whole way through. And it's not like I wouldn't say I'm particularly rushing myself on pitching this, but you can see the mere quick and ease of it all. So we want to make sure the pegging ladders are on the outside of the awning, which they are. And then we'll attach the zip. So you do generally tend to have a couple of zip pullers onto it. I always find it easier personally to go up from the inside. Well, just depends which your more dominant hand. Oh, it's all the way in there, is it? Oh. And that's why, because you're not going to oversplay the panel, you can get it looking sharp the whole time. You've got to get a frisbee out, it's always helpful. And again, what I personally recommend doing is sort of starting with the two corners on the outside, pegging them sort of away from one another, just to, again, get that tension in that front panel. But you see how sort of just flush that front panel sits. And then just peg the front panel directly down again. Ideally you want this sort of dead flat, so it's basically just pegging it down rather than kind of out, just it's the way the fabric wants to sit. But yeah, voila, pitched, ready to camp in. Of course at this point you can probably make some additional tweaks to sort of pulling the canopy forward if you need to be, but that's looking pretty much tight as a drum. Good to go, ready to go, but simple and easy. And like I said, it just means that you've got lots of flexibility and you can modulise it. 3 smaller packs, easy to store around the caravan, 3 less things to feed through the rail and put together, and the whole, like I say, that's quite a nice and simple concept. I think the new additions of the panel zipping in, it's more thorough, it's more watertight, but works really nicely. But like I said, have a look at our little video review we've done on the new Sunshine Tour. It goes through a lot more details in that as well. We've also got a packing video you can have a look at as well and see how that fares. But thank you for watching, hope it's been helpful, and we'll move on to the packing in a separate video. Hello and welcome to Attwoolls Outdoors with me, Mike. Today I'm giving you kind of a tutorial video about how you pack away your Sunshine Air Tour awning. So we've done a pitching video in it talking about the process, and we're just going to do essentially the reverse of what we've done in the pitching in terms of packing it all nice and neatly away. So we'll start by just removing the pegging points, and we'll basically do section by section, starting with the front panel. So once we've kind of removed the front panel and done the pegs, we can just neatly fold that up into the section. So that comes off, detaches. What I like to do with this, and personally, is I like to sort of fold it in half directly. So if you get the sort of the top point and then the bottom kind of pegging ladder, then it folds in half. You can lay it inside your nice, clean, dry, what's this, sheltered area in here, and then kind of fold it up. Crucial thing, of course, is looking at your bag width, just see how big, small it needs to be. So that's going to be our little guide for folding. It doesn't really matter if you kind of go from left to right or right to left. Personally, I'm going to kind of go in half. In half here. And then we'll go in half again, I think. Just a good measure. I do find the bags are quite nice and oversized, so there's never too much of that aggro. And then we'll just go through small little sections. Definitely gone too short on the length, but like I said, it's not the end of the world. And that'll just sit nicely back into there. Perfect. So, part one down. We then move on to side panels. Exact same process. Again, the joys of this is not really a strenuous part as such, which means it's one of the good things about going for this awning is you can use it as you kind of need to. And if you need to get a caravan set, makes handy just to unzip that side panel. Personally, I'd recommend probably doing these panels individually, fold them up. Just means then if you want to use one panel without the other, you've still got obviously the option to do that. Same premise that we were looking at previously, just sort of fold it in half. We'll go in half again. I reckon we can probably fold it from that point there actually. Again, probably longer than we need to. But one thing I do like the fact is the bags are kind of very generous. We can use that as a bit of a test. Make sure that fits in. We have tons of room to spare. But I never really detach the peg and ladders because you're always probably more inclined to lose it if you do. For the video, I just kind of use my own little pegs, so I'm not going to pack the pegs away. So you do normally get a separate bag for said pegs. Again, we'll just kind of fold that in half. I'm going to be too particular about it, but just makes life a lot easier. One there. Go again. Perfect. And then again, small little sections down to the base. Job's a good one. Pops that in. Actually find the zipper. Bag number 2 complete. And last but not least, we've got the main body. So for me, what I would do is probably leave the pegs necessarily in the ground. So leave the bottom ones there. We'll take the storm straps. If it is a kind of a windy day, probably do the storm straps last, or deflate it first. Thankfully, there's not many pegs kind of actually with them. If you want to, you could also remove the storm straps if you want to, but generally I find it's fine leaving them on. Push the deflation valve. Now, the inflation valve you want to just unscrew, just because it lets all of the remaining air out, doesn't trap anything in. Just creates not having a dead end really is most important. We'll remove the final pegs that obviously are pegged in at the base. Once we've done that, we can slide it off our rail. I always prefer to try and grab the part of the cader, just so you're not pulling the fabric and more inclined to rip it. At this point, I like to sort of flip it almost directly onto the roof. Just so it's a bit easier to kind of fold away. Because the roof always is square, what I like to then do is we almost fold the ends of the beam into another. So we've created almost like a perfect kind of rectangle in the model. And then from here, we can fold almost into the middle. because what we're almost doing is pushing the air out each side. If need be, grab kind of a width for the bag. It's always a good kind of guesstimation. So we do 1 fold, 2 folds. Now I recommend kind of just give it a little bit of a press of the air out now, just to kind of, any external air then is going to be pressed out the system. Once you work yourself around to where the bottom of the beams are and where the inflation deflation valves are, we'll do exactly the same on this side. So I'm going to fold it in. I can go fold it in once, and then again. Now what I like to do really on this point here is get your bag ready. Always put the awning half in the bag, so when you can do that final roll, just rolling it directly into the bag itself. Key and crucial part is to get a really nice tight roll, get your hands around the cage. If you've got a second pair of hands, makes life that much easier. But what we're doing, because we're rolling from the top down to the bottom, it means that we're pushing the air out to where the valve is itself. You always get a little bit of air in, so I guess we're just putting your weight on it and pressing it over. You can kind of hear the air out, because we're already directly over the bag itself. We haven't got to go anywhere with it. And there we go. In there, plenty of room to spare. Job's good. So that's kind of how you're going to sort of pack away the awning, the side panels and everything again. Of course, if you have any more questions or queries about the model, feel free to contact us via the link below. We've got all our information on our website about all 3 sizes available, the standard depths of it, details about specification as well, but it's kind of an overall specification video showing you about how easy it is to pack it away. And of course, we've got ones on pitch as well, but that's kind of our little demonstration video on the Camper Sunshine Tour fabric in the 3, 4 and the 500 as well. So thank you for watching, and hopefully we'll see you again soon in our next kind of tutorial videos that we offer.